Hi, it's Mark Murphy back with TravelTube.com. Thanks for joining me this week. Got a lot going on. What else is new? I'm not going to get into the whole Iran thing. I'm not going to get into the TSA because the TSA looks like that's getting solved, in part because of ICE showing up, also in part because of the individuals now supposedly getting paid out of different funds. But we still have a deadlock Congress that can't freaking do anything for the American people. But I digress because we're not going into that. But I do need you to sign up at traveltube.com. I do need you to follow us on your favorite podcast app. I do need you to follow us on our social media. And if you have any question, you just go to the site, traveltube.com, and all of our icons in there. You can go right to those social media icons, go right over to IG, go right over to TikTok, whatever it is, Facebook, and just follow. You can also follow Murphy Travels. That's my handle. And I post a lot of stuff there as well. So with that said, I appreciate all of those who do follow, and screw the rest, unless you get off your ass and do it. So this week, I'm curious if you're okay with the USA checking the social media visitors as part of allowing them to enter this country. That's the electronic system for travel authorization. We're going to get into that. And we're going to give you a little contrast with what some other countries are doing. And believe it or not, you won't be surprised. You won't be surprised how the media treats one versus the other. At the same time, I keep seeing these posts from TikTok, et cetera, where people are in a seat on a flight and somebody asks them to switch seats. So have you ever had somebody ask you to switch seats on a flight? And what happens when you politely decline to move from your assigned seat? It gets kind of ugly because there's a lot of entitled people out there. At the same time, I'm trying to remember all of them. I've lost track. I know we've had the protests to support Ukraine. We've had the Free Palestine protests. We had the No Kings. Then we had the ban ICE. Then we had Stop the Iran War. Now we're back to No Kings. I don't know what's next, but maybe something's coming. I might get into that. I might not, but think about that, folks. It's been what, 12 months? And maybe, well, I guess technically speaking, it's been about 14 months, a little over. And all we have is protests, which isn't good for the travel industry because I'll just give you an example about Tahrir Square and Egypt when all travel and tourism to Egypt stopped because of the media's portrayal of the uprising, which was really limited to a very small area called Tahrir Square and didn't really portray what was actually going on. But that didn't stop the destruction of tourism to Egypt at that point in time, because that's what the media does. And the media is doing no favors to the travel industry. And speaking of the media and speaking of the media complex and all of that, and government and overreach, how about censorship? Now, we know that censorship is bad, according to those folks who love Portland to this day, unless it goes against their ideology or presents facts that destroy their narrative. Let's face it, that's what's going on. And we see it on so many levels. So let's get into it. All right, the electronic system for travel authorization. What is it? It's an online automated program. It's designed to make it easy for a visitor who is eligible to visit the US for up to 90 days to go online, download the app, and then basically respond to a bunch of questions. Because unlike the last administration where you had to be vaccinated to come to the country as a tourist, where was the outrage? Where was the outrage? Oh my God, you're killing tourism. Why are you doing this? Why are you forcing an experimental medical procedure on people that just want to come here for vacation? Didn't stop those clowns. And that went on for years and years and years. But social media right now is buzzing because of what? Right. It's saying that if you want to visit the United States, you may have to provide the handles of your social media. And you might even have to make your account public so they can see what you've been posting. Now, what's the logic behind that? Well, if you're posting a bunch of stuff about jihad and death to America, I don't think we want you coming to the country. Got it? That's just the reality check. So it's about safety. And social media is buzzing and how it's going to kill tourism, and you got some of these so-called experts that are out there saying the same thing as random people. Yet we have Western countries doing far, far worse. And I'm going to show you exactly that. But I'm going to show it to you through the lens of the media and how they're portraying this. And you won't be surprised if you've been paying attention. So first up, let's go to the BBC, the lovely BBC. Now, where is my article? I think it's right here. And I'll share that. All right. Let's see if I can make that a little easier to see. I think that, well, you can see me a little easier, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to get to the article here, and it's on the BBC. Okay. I always love journalists where they have might, could, potentially, you know the words, because they're addressing the what ifs, not the reality. But let's assume this is fully implemented, and if you want to come to the U.S., we reserve the right to ask you for those things. And of course, what did the BBC do? Well, let's see. So let's see. The U.S. expects a major influx of foreign tourists next year. Why? The World Cup, right? The Men's World Cup. So that's happening. So we know we're going to get a lot of foreign visitors coming in for the World Cup. And they're coming from some countries that I have visited that aren't exactly friendly to the United States. Let's just leave it at that. And so they're saying that they might require, I don't know, your social media handles. And of course, it's about protecting United States citizens. But based on what we see in terms of the protests against ICE and everything else, a lot of people aren't really that concerned about protecting American citizens. They're more interested in protecting illegal invaders. But I digress. So let's go here. All right. We get the immigration lawyers. We get the people from the Digital Rights Organization, known as the Electronic Frontier Foundation, criticizing the plan. And again, telling the New York Times it, quote, could exacerbate civil liberties harms. How are your stuff is out on social media in the public domain? I mean, of course, you can have a private account, but then anybody that wants to follow it and connect with them can get in and see their stuff. And most people, their social media is wide open. We know that. That's just the fact. But of course, they talk about how it could exacerbate civil liberties harms. How? Okay, I don't know. Do you have civil liberties as a tourist coming to the United States where we're not allowed to ask you certain questions? Have you ever gone through Heathrow Airport? Have you ever flown El Al to go to Israel? You get asked a million questions. It's like a mini interrogation. I don't see anything about my civil rights being violated. If the folks in the UK want to ask questions about my travels, where did I come from? What countries have I visited? Did I pack my own bags? Have they been with me the whole time? Blah, 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 on and on and on. They'll do that. And they've been doing that for years. I got to get my dog out of here. Ben, get on your mat. Go get on your mat, Ben. Ben's being a pain in the ass. Ay, ay, ay. Ben's a good boy, though. But right now, he's like doing battle with my knees under the desk. Luckily, he's a small Labrador because I would be on the floor if he wasn't. Anyway, so let's see. Of course, you're going to get the World Travel and Tourism Council. It said that the U.S. is only one of 184 economies that it analyzed that was expected to see a decline in international visitor spending in 2025. Yeah, we did see that. Absolutely. The biggest hit was from Canadians, but they fail to talk about Canadians' incomes being stagnant for the past now 12 years. They don't talk about half their disposable income being gobbled up by taxes. They don't talk about the draconian things that they've done in Canada to stifle their population. I mean, if you live in Canada, you're broke. You make 60 grand a year good luck traveling to the United States, especially as prices have soared. And there hasn't been much of a drop. So, folks, I don't hear the hotels and the earnings reports complaining about we're not making any money here in the United States with our properties because of this so-called boycott, elbows up from the Canadians. Elbows up, Canadians. Okay, how'd that work on the ice hockey, guys? Yeah, that's your sport, isn't it? It'd be like us losing a baseball game to a Canadian farm league. I don't think you have them. I mean, you do have them for your, your Toronto Blue Jays, et cetera. But no, I'm talking about we assembled a bunch of Americans and went out and kicked your butts. Must have sucked. Anyway, elbows up. So anyway, how many times am I going to say anyway? Now, we've seen the decline coming from Canada. And of course, the US has a border with Canada, one of the biggest borders in the world. And that border has a lot of crossings. And because of the VAT and many other issues related to trying to survive in Canada, what do a lot of Canadians do? Well, if they're near the border, they drive across because they get far better deals in the US on purchases than they do with the VAT and everything else in Canada. And as long as they don't reach their limit, that was good for Canadians. However, Canada, in their infinite wisdom, put on those tariffs, reciprocal, and made products that Canadians wanted to buy at a better cost advantage in the United States not available to them at those better costs. So now they're stuck buying the products in Canada for far more money. And that's about a 40% drop in that cross-border traffic, those daily trips where you're in and out, in a few hours, and that's it. That has come down big time. And we're down about 20% or so on flights coming into the US. Again, I point to the TD Bank survey, which said that the number one reason, 80% of the respondents last year said the number one reason that they're not traveling to the US was economic, okay? And there's another survey up there by the Blue Cross Blue Shield company in Canada that confirmed the same exact data. So I know a lot of the liberals up there can't do math. So here's the deal. Journalists definitely can't do math. It's economic. They can say, we don't like Trump. We're going to sell our house. Oh, Trump's going to be gone in less than 3 years. Hello. But you're going to sell a house, take a hit. Maybe you had an adjustable rate mortgage, and maybe that mortgage reset higher. Maybe if you had a mortgage, you got to have all the insurances associated with the purchase of your house. We've seen that skyrocket because of hurricanes. Maybe your broke-ass government and you now being broke-ass can't afford it anymore. So you don't need that vacation home anymore because guess what? You just can't afford it. You figure it out in Canada, but it's very convenient that you blame it on one guy who's definitely not going to be here in 3 years. In fact, if you look at it, it's like 34 months. So that's what's going on. Now, at the same time, we have that with the BBC. We've got the good old CNN folks, okay? The good old CNN. You gotta love CNN, man. They're just phenomenal. I mean, they just nail it, man. I mean, Abby Phillips is a freaking genius on CNN. And no, if not for Scott Jennings, no one would even watch that show. In fact, I can't watch the show. I just watch the clips because I can't stomach it. It's just ridiculous. But at the same time, CNN's coming out with their take that, millions of travelers, here we go, switch it up. Millions of travelers could skip visiting the US if proposed social media policy is implemented, experts warn. Okay, who are those experts? They didn't call me. They stopped calling me after I mocked them for the MH370 disaster where they had Don Lemon postulating that it was a black hole that swallowed the jet. Okay, Donnie boy, Don Lemond. Yeah, Don's no longer there. Maybe that's one of the reasons, because that was a ridiculous take. And they wanted me to comment on what do I think happened? Well, nobody knows to this day what happened to that jet. So everybody that talked about it was making shit up. They were simply making shit up. You know what I do? I politely decline the invitation when they ask me to talk about something where there's no basis of fact or I don't have any information. I don't go in there and just be like, hey, I think it could be space aliens, grabbed the plane, the round orb surrounded it, and poof, it was gone. Yeah, But that's what they want. They want that because they ran that story. Oh my God, it was like 3 months nonstop. And they got good ratings out of it because all the zombies sitting there in front of their TVs. Okay, CNN, yes, it was a black hole. Maybe it was space aliens. Maybe it was this. Maybe it was that. Again, to this day, nobody knows what happened to that jet. But I was never invited on CNN again because I made a joke that I was going with the Don Lemon theory. The black hole swallowed it. And then they're like, oh, black hole? I was like, no, I'm just fucking with you. I'm just joking. I'm kidding. Yeah, that was the last time I ever heard from him. Go figure. All right. So now we got CNN. And of course, the World Travel and Tourism Council, they're definitely like telling us it's going to really have an impact. You could impact us by $15 to $16 billion in visitor spending. Could be a bad thing, right? We could miss out on 4.7 million international arrivals and on and on and on. The president, Gloria Guevara, said that it'll put us at a competitive disadvantage. Okay. Well, I want to find where Gloria Guevara has said anything about the policies in Germany and the UK, any policy that they've been talking about for the last few years. And I'm going to get into those policies. She's like, there's so many places to travel, and the ESTA travelers, the abbreviation for it, will choose another destination. We will see a decline, and the decline is translated into jobs. I don't disagree with we have a decline. It could translate into jobs. It hasn't hurt the domestic travel products to date. But again, could it? Absolutely. We have a very divided world, which is kind of interesting. So let's see. They surveyed 4,500 travelers from Australia, France, Germany, Japan, South Korea, and the UK. And they said they were aware of the proposed policy. And a large share of them said it would make the U.S. feel less welcoming and less attractive for both leisure and business travel. Okay. All right, WTTC. All right. And then we say, okay, now this is just, this is something that is about to be implemented because there's a 60-day window to study it and to get comments on it. So we'll see if that's going to happen. But again, you got the Greater Miami and the Beaches Hotel Association, they're concerned about it. They're saying that because CBP has been explicit that social media accounts would not be reviewed for posts or activity critical of President Trump or other political leaders, they're talking about they want to find out because they want to take that information, your handle, and they want to put it up against a database that is a national security database to check against classified information. And if that person has been flagged in our database, that's a big flag. And we don't want that person coming into our country, assuming it's obviously something that could be considered dangerous to citizens in the US. And I have to agree, that success in travel, you have to lower barriers, right? So you have to get rid of stupid taxes. We just talked last week about the Chicago tax going up to 19% for hotel stays. Stupid. You'll get less of it. All these other fees, et cetera. You got to get rid of those fees because you're basically taxing people that live outside the country that want to come in. And the more you tax them and you stick them with costs, the less of it you're going to get. And at the same time, I'm going to take a look down here, the U.S. Travel Association. Basically, the visa waiver program, travelers come here to do deals with American businesses, buy American products, experience the beauty of our great nation. If we get this policy wrong, millions of travelers could take their business and the billions of dollars they spend elsewhere, only making America weaker. Okay. Got it. All right. I agree. I don't doubt that. But there's a lot of could, might, possibly, et cetera. But you have to weigh that against allowing anybody to come into our country like the last administration. Oh, you want to come into our country? Oh, you got to be vaccinated if you fly in with a tourist visa. However, if you want to come in illegally, here's a phone. You need an airline ticket? Where do you want to go? You want to go to New York? Here you go. Here's your ticket to New York. Oh, you need a transfer? Nah, we're not going to let you call Uber. You don't have to worry. Use your phone, but don't worry about downloading the Uber app. We'll get you there. We'll put you on a bus. We'll take you to a processing center, and then we'll put you on another bus. We'll take you to the airport. And all the people that are screaming about voter ID, FYI, all of those illegal aliens that we had no idea who these people were. They were from over 165 countries, tens of thousands from China alone, fighting age males. They were put on planes with no ID. None. Is that okay? Is that fine? Because I have to show my ID to get on a plane. I got to go show my ID if I want to buy liquor, even though I'm way too old to be getting carded, as noticed by the gray hair. But again, this is what we're dealing with. Now, in addition to all of that, what else do we have? Well, we've got, let's see, a contrast. What do you mean, Mark, a contrast? What's the contrast? Oh, CNN, the U.S. Travel Association, the president of the World Travel and Tourism Council, and on and on and on. Have they spoken out about that thing? What is it? It's hold on a second. It's Germany and what they can do to tourists based on your speech. What do I mean by that? Oh, take a look. Here you go. So, criminal law in Germany regarding online activity is strict and actively enforced. Go and watch the 60 Minutes interview with the German clowns who are arresting their own citizens, but also threatening to arrest tourists for the words they put online. So they consider hate speech and insults against the law. So they don't protect what they consider hate speech. Again, that's subjective. And if you like something on X, for instance, that they consider hate speech, again, subjective. If you like it or you share it, again, if you hit the like button, now all of a sudden, hold on a second. What? Now you got a problem? You could be arrested as a tourist in Germany? Yes. Not an effing word from the U.S. Travel Association, although it's not really their place to do that. But if you're going to make a point about a U.S. policy, USTA, okay, then you should contrast it with what other countries are doing. I don't hear any outrage from anybody in the travel industry about what Germany's doing. And I'll read it to you because it's un-effing believable. So hate speech, however you define that. That's subjective up to them. Insults. If you make a demeaning or insulting comment about individuals. What? So if I mock somebody sarcastically for any reason, and that person's offended in Germany, again, subjective, God forbid somebody gets offended by speech, you can get locked up and imprisoned in Germany. You then have to hire a lawyer in Germany, a country you don't speak the language, and then you have to defend yourself as a tourist. Unbelievable. But again, where's the outcry from the people in the travel industry? Crickets. How about if you insult public figures? Specific laws protect politicians from online insults. No wonder Germany's so effed up. You can't criticize the morons running your country. You know the ones that took a 6-year-old coal plant and got rid of it based on the green agenda. Oh, and before that, what else did they do? Oh, yeah, they got rid of all their nuclear reactors. Yeah. And they were getting the gas and the oil coming through the Nord Stream pipeline from Russia. What happened to that? Oh, yeah, it got blown up. And now they are in a world of hurt. And their manufacturing is going to get destroyed. Because without energy that's cost effective, you can't manufacture. That is a fact for all you stop oil idiots, okay? Because if you're using an iPhone, you needed oil to make the iPhone, just so you know. The clothes you're wearing, made out of oil, 99% of what people are wearing. Those Lululemon pants that all the girls like so much, Yeah, those tights made out of oil. Like you drive a Tesla, it takes 2 barrels of oil. I'm so virtuous. I drive a Tesla. It takes 10 years to break even on the so-called carbon emissions. Because guess what? Guess how they make electricity? Okay, back to the Portlanders. Yeah, they make electricity by burning fossil fuels, natural gas, oil, coal, etc. Unicorn farts aren't doing it these days, guys. Yeah, there's no unicorns. I know some of you like dress up in the frog costumes and everything. Maybe you should dress up in a unicorn and start farting and see if you can drive your car with your unicorn farts. I think that would be a brilliant idea. I would support you, or I would at least watch your stupidity. Now, praising offenses is another one. Expressing approval for or praising committed or future criminal acts is a crime. So somebody fights back against an attacker or whatever, or somebody does something and a guy punches out the other guy and you're like, man, I would have done the same thing. Way to go, bro. That's technically what they're talking about. And the fact that they're saying that they could come after you because there's no exceptions. So no free speech exception. Yet the morons in Europe, the leadership, I'm not talking about the people, the leadership in Europe, in this case, Germany, they call our president a dictator, a fascist, all sorts of things, right? Yet this is their policy. And again, where's the outcry from the travel industry? Yeah. Now, under police enforcement, they have actual specialized units regularly raiding homes of individuals suspected of posting illegal content, seizing computers and phones. I wish I could say you can make it up, but just so you guys know, you are not immune to this as a traveler going to Germany. If you post something that falls within their subjective guidelines, you, sir, ma'am, could be subject to arrest in Germany while you're on your vacation. Let that sink in. But again, Trump's a fascist. I wish you couldn't make this stuff up, but you sure as hell can make this stuff up because we're seeing it in 3D. We're seeing it all the time. Now, you might be surprised that over the weekend, the folks in the UK, they supported the No Kings protest. Now, if you want to know what a bunch of dumb jackasses are doing that in the UK, look no further than their actual king. So imagine you're living in the UK under a monarchy, but you're being organized and probably paid to protest no kings. In solidarity with the US, which doesn't have a king, but you're under the jurisdiction of a monarchy and a king. Are these people idiots? Yeah, they're idiots. But here's what I love. I got a little pushback when I talked about this when it first came out. This picture is, I don't even know if he's still there, London's Metropolitan Police Chief. Here's what he said. He said that they reserve the right to extradite and jail U.S. citizens over online posts. Quote, we'll come after you. You smarmy little piece of shit. Good luck. I just called you a smarmy little piece of shit because that's what this guy is. Talk about totalitarian. I mean, protesting no kings, but being arrested for words. We will throw the full force of the law at people, and whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield, we will come after you. That's Mark Rowley telling Sky News. Wow. Now, if you commit a crime in England, you're subject to their laws. That there's nothing wrong with that, just like in the US. But to make that point and say that is truly unbelievable. She asked, the reporter asked what the police force's plan will be when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up, this kind of behavior. He said, quote, being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offenses of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offenses regarding the publishing of material. So now if you comment about the scumbags that the UK is allowing to come in and rule their cities and towns, and you know where they're from, and you know what they're doing, and they're raping children, and they're doing all sorts of disgusting stuff, you speak out against that, you could end up in jail, according to this jackass. Now, he also says all of those offenses are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets. And we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the yobs, what I don't know what yob is, who are taking, I don't even know what that means, or who are causing the problems for communities. This includes Elon Musk basically criticizing Keir Starmer, who is a moron, and his response to the riots that happened, a while back, probably 18 months ago. And somebody was arrested in the UK because they said, is this Britain or the Soviet Union? That was an arrestable offense, folks, in the UK. Where's the travel industry, guys? I used to go to London every year, sometimes multiple times a year. How many times have I been back to London since COVID? Zero. And my wife has family there. Interesting. And then Starmer's spokesperson said there was no justification for Musk's comments. No, Starmer, you're destroying a country like actively. That's what you're doing. And the fact that you're saying it's okay to arrest foreigners because they post something you don't like subjectively from a different country, and in the case of U.S. citizens, you're saying, we'll come and extradite you. Yeah, I will say to you, good luck with that, you pasty-faced scumbag. Good luck. Is that considered hate speech in the UK? How much do I care? I could care less. Unbelievable. But again, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And we're just supposed to be like, oh, it's okay. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine. Totally fine. You're in the travel industry. Totally fine. Totally okay. That's Trump's bad. They might ask for your social media handle. Yeah, your social media handles. We might ask you for that because we want to know what you've been posting, because we want to see where you're coming from and what we think you might do when you get here. And we reserve that right. We're not going to arrest you. We're just not going to let you in. Don't come in. And if the UK says they don't want Mark Murphy to come, great. No need to go. I'll send my wife. You can let her in. You can let my little Karen in. Will she be able to go to the UK to visit her family? We just had one of her relatives, her cousin, visit us here. He had no problem. But yeah, alas, this is where the world is at. So when you hear all of this stuff, you got to ask yourself, what is it really about? What is all of this really about? In a word, it's about censorship, folks. That's what it's about. It's about censorship. And we know censorship, generally speaking, is bad, right? I mean, if you're working on a top secret thing and you don't want it out, yeah, that's okay. But censoring people's ability to speak out on topics that they have an issue with, that they don't like, you can't do that. And in Germany, like I said before, you can't say negative stuff about their leaders. So basically, where are the kings? There should be no king's protest going on in Germany. But obviously, they're too obtuse and stupid to realize that that's what's really going on. So I got to tell you, it's unbelievable, but that's where we're at. And so I believe that it's all about censorship. If they don't like what you say, off to the brig, you're out of here. And that's a hard one for us to swallow if we're in the US, because we give a big, middle finger to the UK, Great Britain, many years ago. We're coming up on 250 years, and we're the most successful country in the world with free speech. Now, let's face it, in 2020 and for years after, we were subjected to censorship. I know. I got kicked off LinkedIn for what was a really provocative post. It wasn't provocative. I was promoting my podcast at the time, different podcast. I don't do it anymore. It was during COVID. It was addressing all the bullshit with COVID. But I promoted it and I wrote Singapore super spreader, ? And then a little bit of a deck about what the topic, how I was going to get into the topic, and then posted the podcast so you would click on it and go listen to it. Well, LinkedIn, because of the pressure from the federal government under Biden, kicked me off LinkedIn, suppressed my posts on Facebook and other places. I could post something and I had 4,000 or 5,000 friends. I had over 40,000 followers on Facebook. I could post something and not get a single like. In fact, my wife would go on to say, hey, I thought you posted something. She couldn't find it. Why? Because they were suppressing it. X was doing the same thing when it was Twitter under Jack Dorsey. Facebook was doing it. And we know they were doing it because under oath, under a congressional subpoena to appear before Congress, Mark Zuckerberg flat out said that they had a back channel and they would get messages. Hey, this post, this needs to come down. Same with the Twitter guy. I forget the guy's name at Twitter. And they were told to take those posts down by the federal government. This was going on. And it was going on for years. And the social media companies were pressured. They were instructed to shut down these posts across social media. They were instructed to cancel people with hundreds of thousands of followers and cancel their accounts. Goodbye. You're gone. You're never coming back. Until, thank God, Elon Musk bought X and allowed for free speech. And to give you an idea, COVID cases, because this is during the whole COVID thing. They wanted everyone to get a vaccine. They wanted to lock you in your house, right? But here's what's crazy. When I posted Singapore super spreader, I went against the narrative because the vaccine was going to stop COVID in its tracks. If you remember, we heard the CDC, we had Rachel Maddow, we had everybody on network TV and cable TV saying, if you get the vaccine, you can't get COVID and you can't spread it, which was a known lie from the pharmaceutical companies from day one. I had to wait till the data came out to talk about it, but it was going against the narrative. And one of the narratives was that COVID cases actually increased post-vaccination. They increased. But you can't have people doubt the science. And I should know because, like I said, LinkedIn kicked me off when I pointed out the obvious. The vaccine didn't work. We didn't know about the side effects yet, but we knew it didn't work. And we knew it was created in less than a year. The data proved that in Israel. It proved it in Singapore and numerous other countries, including ours, where cases and deaths actually went up after mass vaccination. So I will share with you the numbers because, again, I like to bring the facts to you, not the bullshit and the lies. And here you go. So what we have here, it's a little hard to see if you're watching it on video, so I'll rattle it off for you. In 2020, remember, Trump lost in large part because they said that he bumbled COVID, it was a disaster, or look at all these Americans that died, and on and on and on. And we had 385,676 so-called COVID deaths, okay, so-called, because anybody that tested positive for COVID, even if they had a gunshot wound to the head and it was a suicide, was counted as a COVID case because there was a sick incentive to classify everything, and it was called money, and the hospitals got more money if you got diagnosed with COVID. You died from a gunshot wound, yet you got classified as a COVID death because they got more money because that was higher risk. It was very risky. COVID is so dangerous. It was so dangerous that in 2020, at the end of May, you had doctors sign a petition. It got to 1,200. Look it up. Just Google this. 1,000 healthcare professionals on CNN say drop COVID mandates. Just type that in. Just say, or just 1,000 healthcare professionals CNN. It'll come up. It'll be the first thing you see. And in that article, these healthcare professionals, because I'm not a doctor. How do you can't talk about this, Mark. You're not a medical professional. I'd hear that bullshit too. They would say things like, the protesting is more important than living because COVID is so dangerous that we're going to encourage all the POC, people of color, which I thought colored people. You shouldn't really say that. Remember that went out 40 years ago, right? They said weeks earlier on May 8th, they said people of color are more likely to die from COVID and have worse complications. Yet on June 5th, I believe is the exact date, they wrote the article about the 1,000 petitions, 1,000 signatures for the petition to drop all mandates for BLM protests. So the guy running the Italian restaurant can't open his restaurant because it's too dangerous, but people can walk down the street, no masks, no social distancing, no arrows to follow around, right? Because that was more important. What more? I thought I was going to die from COVID, folks. How is that more important? But anyway, so 2020, it was a pandemic. It was crazy, right? We got to get the vaccine out. The vaccine comes out at the end of 2020. Remember, they held it up and they didn't announce it till after the election because they thought it would help Trump and they wanted to hurt Trump. Yeah, those were your pharmaceutical guys, right? Yeah, they held that data and they lied about the data. And then here's the remarkable thing, because actual data doesn't lie. So if we supposedly had 385,676 COVID deaths in 2020, you would think, come on, Portland, you would think that the number of deaths from COVID would go down dramatically once you've instituted mass vaccination. And who are the people lined up first? The most vulnerable, the people that were actually dying from COVID because they had on average 4 comorbidities and an average age of 80. That's where, stubbing your toe could end up in a fall that puts you in the hospital and you're dead. That's how it works. But at the same time, the next year, the mass vaccination year, we actually saw 463,000 deaths. So that's a difference, folks. 63 plus 35, just round. What does that come up to? 63 plus 35, come on. Is that 98,000? No, that's not right. 15,000. So 463 plus 15, 78,000 more deaths in 2021 under mass vaccination. Huh? Oh, it's a pandemic. Everyone's going to die. What are you doing, Mark? You're getting people killed. More people died under Biden than under Trump. Trump had no vaccine. He had nothing. He had Operation Warp Speed, which I thought was a disaster. And that's something I have a tough time just being okay with. But who pushed that and why did they push it? When the numbers belied its effectiveness. Anybody? Any of the pro-jab people out there? How do you get more deaths? And by the way, every time it mutates, it got weaker and weaker. Just FYI. People say, but it was Delta, it was this, it was that, it was Omicron, it was blah, 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 blah. Now, as viruses mutate, science says they actually get weaker over time. I had natural immunity. I had COVID once, never had it again. And I had it in the spring of 2021, never got it again, never got vaccinated. And I thank God that I sold my company. I didn't have to go through that. Travel industry, on the other hand, forced anybody that wanted to do any kind of travel industry event, you had to have a vaccine card. Show me your papers. Yet those same people have a problem with somebody getting pulled over that they suspect is an illegal immigrant. And you're asking people for their papers. That's like Nazi Germany. Yeah, well, I was living Nazi Germany when, as a cancer patient, I went to Sloan Kettering and I couldn't go to a restaurant in New York City in 2021 because I didn't have a COVID card. I couldn't show my papers. I'm trying not to curse, folks, but it's really hard. It's really hard. Now, in addition to that, how about these numbers? So remember I told you about the Singapore super spreader? Yeah. So for the folks who don't realize it, Singapore, I'm going to keep this graph really big. So Singapore was averaging 58, 59, 60,000. And we're already in June of 21, we went from, let's say, August 27, 2020, there were 56,000 COVID infections reported in Singapore. By March of 2022, in April, 1,113,000. Okay, what does that tell you? You had a huge increase in the number of cases despite mass vaccination, where 88% of the population at that point had had at least one shot. But I thought the vaccine worked, folks. It doesn't work? What? Are you sure? Yeah, the numbers don't lie. But you know who does? Public officials, politicians, the pharmaceutical industry, Fauci, and all the other scumbags. They lie. Yet you're supposed to be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go along with it. Well, if you went along with it, I feel bad for you because you were part of a very large PSYOP and you fell for it. And luckily, I mean, I know if I owned my company, I probably would have had to get vaccinated, and I just knock on wood and say, thank God I didn't have to do that. And what's interesting is this data was publicly available. I mean, I don't have some special access. I'm not, working for the CIA. I don't have access to all these things. But when you look at the data from Singapore, and this is what I was talking about, at that point in time, the number of cases had already doubled. And they kept on going up and up and up. And it looks like a hockey stick. If you didn't see it, it's literally like it's baseline around 60,000 or a little less. The injections it starts going up, and then it takes a sharp turn all the way up that by the end of 2021, December of 2021, the number went from 60,000 to 276,000. But I did my podcast a little earlier, and I noticed that, wow, it was creeping up from, in the 50s into the 60s. And then by the time I did my podcast, it went over 100,000. And then it just kept going straight up. And within, let's see, from November of 21 until March 25th, 2022, it went from, what did I say, November? Let me go to September. So, or early October. October 1st, it hit 100,000. 6 months later, 1.1 million. And that got me kicked off. Pointing that out got me kicked off LinkedIn. Because God forbid you quote actual data, especially doing a PSYOP designed to see just how far you'd bend over to comply with their demands. But I will say this, never fear, the travel industry is here. They stepped up, and leadership, like the leaders, they got very vocal because there were lockdowns. You couldn't sail in the cruise industry for 18 months. And they were just pounding the table. They were demanding that this get dropped. This is ridiculous, and so on. Yeah, they never did that. Yeah, I don't recall anyone in the travel industry doing jack. Literally, I don't recall a single one. They didn't say shit. They're a bunch of sheep that allowed their industries to get crushed without a peep. And just like they're doing now, unless it's something that the current administration is proposing, like screening social media for indications that someone might be a bad apple, when Germany and the UK are threatening to arrest tourists for what they're posting online, if it's considered hate speech, and the UK specifically said, even if you don't visit the UK, we reserve the right to go and find you, and we'll come and get you, and we'll arrest you, and we'll get you extradited. To that, I say good luck to that smarmy piece of crap. But that's what they're saying right out in the open. But the travel industry is focused on the Trump administration wants your social media handles to see what you've been posting about. And that's like a civil rights violation. I think it's a bigger civil rights violation, FYI, to be threatened with arrest for speech than it is for posting a meme, because you can get arrested for posting a meme. That happened under the Biden administration. I don't know if you know that. That guy got arrested for posting a meme and went to jail. And it was like the fake, like a vote for Hillary type of thing. I don't know if it happened under Obama or Biden. I have to look at that date. But a guy went to jail in the US. Again, they tried to destroy our freedom of speech via censorship, and nobody said anything in the travel industry. So think about it. You're okay. You're not okay with us asking for social media to get a handle on who you might be, because we don't know you from Jack. The previous administration let 20 million people flood our country. We had no idea who they were. No vaccination, no nothing. Just come on in and we'll actually pay for you to stay here. But if we screen social media for indications that somebody might be a bad apple, yeah, that's a really bad thing. The so-called leaders in the travel industry are quite vocal about this, but they stay mum about countries like Germany, the UK, because somebody might say something that subjectively somebody considers offensive. It's offensive. Basically, the travel industry today has way too many sheep that will go along with anything and not enough leaders. If that offends you in the travel industry, I don't care. I don't care, because I'm speaking facts and truth. So get a backbone, get a spine, show up and speak out on all fronts. I don't have a problem with you bitching about the social media handles. That's okay. But when you don't say anything about what's going on to the places you're sending people to, then I got a problem. I got a problem. And the last thing I'll conclude with is the people that think when they come on a plane, they're entitled to your seat, your assigned seat. So if you're in a window seat and they want to, quote, sit with their wife, sit with their kids, sit with whatever, they ask you, usually politely, hey, would you mind switching seats? I'm a guy that's flown millions of miles. I have given up my seat if there's a comparable seat I can move to. Full flight, listen, I understand. If I'm on the aisle and I got to move across the aisle and I'm in an exit row, no problem. Because I'm still in an exit row, I'm still aisle. Now, if the guy in the middle seat of the row I'm supposed to move to weighs 400 pounds, I'm not moving. But what I don't get is when those people become upset with the person who doesn't want to move. It's like, bro, I'm here. I'm going to put my eye cover on, my AirPods in, noise canceling. I'm going to read for a bit. I'm going to zone out. I'm going to sleep for a bit. I don't want to be bothered. But before the doors even close, you got somebody asking you to switch seats. If you politely say, you know what, I really like the seat, so I'm just going to stay put. I hope somebody else is cool and lets you. But right now, I don't feel like getting up and, wish you the best of luck. Wow, you're rude. Can't believe you did that. I can't believe you said that. Blah, 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 blah. Because we have a world of entitlement, and people feel entitled to things that they don't pay for, that they don't deserve, that they didn't take the time to procure for themselves or their family members. Not my problem. Like I said, if it's comparable and I can help somebody out, I have no problem with that. But at the same time, it's like, hey, can you move to this window seat? Nope, I don't like window seats. I like aisle seats. Sorry, I'm an aisle seat guy. Well, could you move up to like row one because we're all in first class? No, because then I got nowhere to put my bag that I can easily access right after takeoff to pull out my iPad or whatever, my computer, whatever I'm doing, right? I'd have to get up to get it because the guy behind me is already using the space under my seat. So yeah, they're non-starters for me. The other thing, that bulkhead seat on domestic first class, I'm 6'2". I got long legs, longer than my normal frame for my actual height. I don't like the bulkhead seat. That's the last seat I want. I'd rather have a guy reclining into me than be in a bulkhead. Why? Because I can stretch my feet out underneath them. But again, I've had people be like, hey, I understand, no problem. And I've had more than half the time when people ask and I say no for those reasons, I get attitude. And you know what? It used to bother me. It used to piss me off a bit. But I guess I've gotten older and calmer and a bit wiser because then I just laugh in their face. I'm like, well, maybe next time you book a little ahead of time so you guys can sit together, and you'll take care of that. And then your wife won't be so upset. And then my last question, I'll just leave this hanging. Who's worse? Is it the guy asking for you to move and you say no, his response, or the woman asking you to move and accommodate her and her response? Who's worse? Who's worse? That's all I have for you this week. That's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you next time. Don't forget, sign up, follow, listen to the podcast. You can listen to this anywhere. And that's it. Have a good one.